Welcome to the Clemson Insiders, our new segment that we're going to start doing this year. It's called On the Beat, where me and a fellow member of the Clemson media will sit and talk about the Clemson Tigers and what's going to go on this season and what our thoughts are as we go through the course of the year. Sitting beside me is Matt Connolly for the state newspaper in Columbia. Matt has been working for the last, 3 years now, Matt, on the beat?
4 years.
4 years full-time? Yeah, so now Matt has a good perspective on the Tigers, obviously. Been doing this for a while now and has been covering college football for a while now as well. So, first of all, Matt, thanks for being here. It's great having you here. And today, kind of want to talk to people about, this team is because though we know what we think they're going to be, right, there's still some question marks. So your thoughts coming out of camp now that the Tigers are wrapping up camp and what you think this football team may look like this year?
Yeah, I think at least early on it's probably going to be outscoring people. I think the Texas A&M game could be a little tricky early on. I think that's a team that can score on Clemson, and particularly as they try to get the defense figured out and try to get all those young pieces into place. So I think early on maybe some defensive struggles a little bit, but I trust Brent Venables and that staff enough that by the end of the year I think they'll have all that corrected and probably be playing for a national title again.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the defense. I wrote a story today on our website about how the defense, Coach Venables told us the other day that, right now he would have only 15 guys to play against Georgia Tech. Now, let's make it in comparison to last year. They had like almost 30 guys that could legitimately play, and there's no much of a drop-off. To me, that's got to be a little bit of a concern. Now, let's also be honest, there's a lot of guys banged up, and I think that's where some of that's coming from. So they're probably going to be more around 20, I would say, by the time kickoff gets here. But flip it on over to the offensive side of the football, and I think there's a lot of things when you look at Clemson, how loaded, Matt, this offense is. I think, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, I think they can score 50 points a game. Yeah. You feel the same way?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all with all the talent they have and experience and everything.
It's just amazing. And then now they got these young receivers they're going to bring in, 4 seniors on the offensive line. But I think the number one question is at tight end right now. I think that's what everybody's been concerned about. And I don't know if it's really a concern. It doesn't seem like Coach Sweeney's concerned about it at all. Now they're gonna have people there, and we'll break into that, who those people are. But I don't think it's something that the fans need to worry about, right? Because of what Coach Sweeney has told us during camp.
Yeah, I think going into camp, that was probably the only concern on the offensive side of the ball that I saw was just who's going to step up at tight end, because, JC talked the last time we saw him. He wasn't in the best of shape, and it looked like a guy who was ready to go out there and be a real threat in pass catching. Jalen Lay was dropping passes and kind of struggling during the spring, and so, with Braden Galloway gone, that was kind of the one question, is who's going to step up at tight end. But they've been really pleased with the tight end position from everything we've heard during fall camp. JC Chalk lost 15 pounds or so, completely transformed his body. He looks like a completely different player. Looks good running routes, getting open, catching the ball.
4 catches in the scrimmage the other day.
And then Jalen Lay as well, weighs 270 pounds or so. He's a big physical tight end, and he was really impressive. In the W drill we saw, I saw he had a really good rep in that, but he's catching the ball a lot better, kind of figured out all those drops. I think the game was going so fast for him during the spring that it was hard for him, but it's really slowed down now, and he's able to just go out and play and not think all the time. So I think both of those guys they feel really good about right now.
And that's the benefit of spring practice, when you hear these guys come in and they elect to go ahead and skip the second half of their senior year of high school to come in, because a guy like Jalen Lay, who knew he was going to have to play this year, I don't know if he would have been ready if he came in midsummer like Davis Allen did. So Dabo said Lay has had the best camp of anybody. He's the most improved player of any player on the roster, the entire roster, not just offense, but the entire roster. And so he's done a good job there and got himself ready. But I guess going back to Davis Allen, the concern with him is they were hoping he would be ready, but you got to think he's missed the entire camp with a foot injury. I don't know when he does get back if he's going to be able to get caught up.
Yeah, I think he'll play at some point this year. I think he was doing so well from everything we heard during the summer. They were really pleased with where he was. That he's a guy that when he is completely healthy and can kind of get caught up to speed on everything, that he will be able to help them. But yeah, as far as early on in the year, it's hard to ask a guy who missed all of fall camp to go out there week 1, week 2, even if from a health standpoint he's ready. I think it'll probably be later on in the year when he's maybe a little bigger part of the offense.
Now we got some breaking news here, so you're hearing it first on TCI that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the starting quarterback. Dabo Swinney announced that today in a joking way as he was walking off the practice field. Just want to say nobody's going to ask me who my starting quarterback is. So of course, we all went along with the joke. Coach Swinney he's a character at times. So your thoughts though on Trevor Lawrence? I mean, I asked him earlier in camp. He reminded me of Peyton Manning and he was like, whatever, he kind of shrugged it off.
Right.
He's a very humble young man, but you're a Peyton Manning guy. I mean, this guy loves Peyton Manning. Trust me, he named his daughter after Peyton Manning.
I do.
So your thoughts? Do you see some Peyton Manning in Trevor Lawrence?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think just big, physical. He can make all the throws. Peyton, probably didn't have as good an arm strength as Trevor, but he was able to do more mentally, and I think that's something Trevor's really worked on is getting the mental aspect down of the game, knowing exactly where the blitz is coming from, where his read is, all that kind of stuff. You saw him, and he had a great year, don't get me wrong, last year as a freshman. He was incredible, but you also did see sometimes that Boston College game in particular, they were able to bring some pressures and confuse him at times a little bit. And so that was something that he really worked hard on this offseason. And it sounded like he's made a lot of progress there. It was funny, we asked Dabo the other day after the scrimmage who stood out. And he said, well, that Trevor guy's pretty good. I mean, so even for Trevor's standards, it sounds like he's taken another step and he's ready to have just a monster year. I said after last year's national title game, I don't think I'll pick Clemson to lose another game as long as Trevor Lawrence is here, just because I think that highly of him and what he did against that Alabama defense last year, just picking those guys apart. So certainly probably, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the country. And I think if he would have come out last year for the NFL draft, if he could have, Mel Kiper, several people said he'd be the number one pick in the draft. So this kind of speaks about his talent.
Yeah, I think he would be too. And one thing that stood out to me when talking with Brandon Streeter, when the times we've had him after the bowl games and then also, a few weeks back for Dabo's media stuff.
Sure.
Brandon,
gold medalist, by the way.
Congratulations. That's right. I forgot to tell you
you.
that. Congratulations to your team. Y'all guys won it. But you know why you won it, though? You had a Bamberg guy on there. Daquan Bowers was on your team, and that's why you really won it. So we know that's the truth. So anyway, to go back, though, to what Brandon said about Trevor was the fact that he said last year to me that he thought as a freshman, Trevor was already ahead of where Deshaun was coming out of his freshman year as far as the mental makeup.
Right.
Now, we all know how good Deshaun Watson was, and to hear a guy he's saying, the quarterback's coach is already saying, yeah, he's already better at that point in his career than this guy who was, first-round draft pick and is, playing well in the NFL right now and a national championship quarterback. I mean, that tells you a lot about Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah, I mean, the sky's really the limit for Trevor. Some footwork stuff I think they wanted to clean up this year, but they really had to dig deep and really go to the details to try to find what they wanted to work on this summer for him, just because he's such an elite player. He was so far ahead of pretty much anyone in college football that in a long, long time as a freshman with what he was able to do. It's hard to come in first year of college football and win a national title. There's a reason why no one's ever done it, right?
It's only happened once before him.
And so, when you look at just the year he had last year and the fact that he's only going to get better and better, it's kind of scary to think about what he can become and what this offense can become.
And speaking of that, the rest of the offense, I mean, it's not just Trevor. Trevor's weapons are everywhere. I mean, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, when he gets him back, Amari Rogers, and now he's got a couple other guys that we heard that was really the talk of camp in Latson and Nagata. Your thoughts on these wide receivers and then obviously running back Travis Etienne as well? Yeah,
DeAndre Overton was having a great camp.
True.
He's another guy we heard about. Cornell Powell coming back. I mean, I think they just have so many weapons all over the field. And for Dabo to talk about Ngata the way that he did the other day is the hardest worker he's ever had. He doesn't just throw around praise like that often for a freshman and kind of talk people up the way that he's talked up Ngata unless he really thinks they're ready to do something special. And so he said he's a different kind of receiver than anyone they've ever had, just from a physicality standpoint, height, just speed, everything he brings to the table. I think he's just another weapon that they're going to have at their disposal this year to kind of go along with Justin and T. And I think by the end of the year, it wouldn't surprise me if those are the three best receivers on the roster. And Ngata by the end of the year is kind of doing what Ross did last year. Maybe not to the extent of 300 yards in the playoff, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year he's a big piece of the offense.
I think he's going to be too, especially with them moving them playing the boundary position and the field position now, and that's a way they're trying to figure out how to get all 4 of those guys on the field at the same time.
Well, it's super hard to come in as a freshman and pick up this offense and just be ready to go game one. I mean, I know Ross came in the summer last year and wasn't here for the spring, but Jeff Scott mentioned to us the other day he played one play in the Texas A&M game. Just he wasn't there ready or mentally. Physically, he's always had the tools, but mentally it took a little bit of time. And so for Ngata to come in and already be able to learn 2 positions, and Dabo said they can move him to the slot some as well, I think this really speaks of his capabilities, both mentally and physically.
Absolutely. Now, real fast before we get you out of here and let you go, Georgia Tech games next week, season opener. What are you expecting out of that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually this could become a fun rivalry again. I think Jeff Collins is a good coach, and I think the Atlanta area, obviously they have plenty of talent down there if you can start getting some of that to stay home. But this year I don't think it's going to be much of a contest. I just, the talent gap is so big, and then you're trying to convert an offense that was a lot of triple option, and that's kind of the personnel they fit. And now you're telling them to go out there and try to run a spread and that kind of stuff. Against Brent Venables' defense and everything he's going to throw at you. I think it's probably going to get pretty ugly, would be my guess. But I do think eventually it'll be a fun rivalry again, kind of the way it was in the past.
Yeah, I think the only way it doesn't get ugly is if Dabo Swinney just calls the dog's office sooner rather than later. He's got a tendency to do that. He knows when to go ahead and make that call. He knows his team's in control. So. Anyway, Matt, thanks for joining us on the beat here. It's been fun talking to you, man. We talk football all the time.
Yes, sir.
It's good to do it. Next time we'll talk about the Steelers, okay?
I'm busy that weekend.
So anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll have more from the Clemson Insider. I'm Will Vandervoort for Matt Connolly. We'll see you next time.